Okay, we're gonna do a little video series here, short. This is at a friend's house. We're gonna touch on a couple things. First and foremost, don't touch other people's stuff. I have a bad habit of just this lamp had this finial kind of a situation coming down below, and it was clearly not plumb, and I just wanted to swing it over plumb, so I just tested it out. I thought, for what I thought wasn't very much pressure, and it just went tink, comically broke off right in my hand. Here's the component here. It's actually two pieces. It's like a brass tube and a brass spun finial end or whatever, but it was in there like that. And I just thought, maybe you can't appreciate it here, but I just thought it needs to be, the fixture needed to be over so that it was plumb while we were standing here talking, and like I said, it just went snap. So don't touch stuff unless I'm a little bolder because I know I can fix it. This has like a typical lamp. It had a threaded tube where everything's stacked up. All these components are assembled and normally held together from one end to the other with a decorative nut, and everything just gets tightened together it's like a stack up, and that's commonly how lamps are fabricated. And the exterior, like I said, is brass. All these components are, even if it may be a little cheap, but they're brass. But the guts are pot metal, steel, zinc plated stuff, or magnesium. It depends on what kind of a fixture you buy. So the next thing I wanted to touch on is outside light fixtures. I'm sure if I touched that one over there, it would snap off in the same way. You can see the length of time this has been here, but that was completely disintegrated. I think I just poured it out on the ground, or maybe I threw it out. Just junk. My buddy, he's like me. He wants to one and done stuff. He would have never bought these. Probably builder quality. That's what you get at Depot and Lowe's and stuff. $30, $40 outside fixture. They're definitely a light. They definitely look how they look if you like how they look, and they'll definitely hang out for 5 or 10 years. And if you never touch them, you may even get away with longer. But really, I know he would love to upgrade something, so I'm not going to beat him up too badly. That's not the point of this. But when you come to replace your outside fixtures, it's nice if you can shop for things that are $125 to $200 each, especially if you only need 2 or 3. And then the next thing would be to keep an eye on them and wait until there's a sale, wait until there's a discount, wait until there's free shipping, wait until, if you need enough of them that they come down in the unit price if you buy more than 4 or more than 6 or something like that, and get something nice, put them up and be done with it. So that's my... this is the type of failure that you'll end up having when you get the builder quality lamp. People go to the store and go, I don't know, why would I spend so much more money, with signature hardware or restoration hardware or some other sort of higher end thing, when I could just go down to the store and get something. Well, it's junk. And if that bothers you, like it bothers me, then I wouldn't advise it. I've already glued this. The third thing we're going to talk about is methacrylate adhesive. Methacrylate. Methacrylate. It's an acrylic-based compound. It's an adhesive, much like acrylic nails. So it's going to smell like the nail salon. That particular smell at the nail salon, that's what you're going to get here out of 2 components. You mix them together and they catalyze. Sometimes it's even marketed as epoxy. Loctite has a plastic weld epoxy. Epoxy has become confusing because of people mislabeling products like that. But epoxy doesn't refer to any material that's a 2-component mixed together. That's a lot of people think that that's just the same, one and the same. This is 2 components. It's not an epoxy. It's a methacrylate. It can be used in the same place that you would use epoxy, and you may even get away with an epoxy to fix this problem here. But some of the things that I hate about epoxy, once it's on something, it's it. It's not coming off. So something like that, just as an experiment here, I make it wet with a little bit of spit, and you can see how it transforms the look of this item. Everywhere that you get epoxy, as you can tell there, that is what that would look like forever. If you tried to put a little bit in this inside corner to glue this finial onto the end of this tube, and you wiped the excess away, that whole area is going to be glossy, and it's going to transform the properties of the light coming back to your eye. It's going to change it, and it's going to give away the fact that it's been glued up sloppily. The second thing that epoxy is going to do, run away. If you mix it up in a puddle, the puddle relaxes, becomes one solid smooth surface, and travels along when you're working with it. You'll see here the black methacrylate, which is another nice thing, is you can get it black and natural finish colors. I think if you dig around you can get even some other colors. But you notice the shapes from stirring are the shapes that it hardened in. So it's more like toothpaste. It doesn't really relax and slouch, it's called, is the property of the fluid. I prefer that. And in the case of this here, there is quite a bit down in there around the inside to hold these two pieces together. But when a little bit squeezed out, after a moment, you don't want to disturb the joint. You don't want sliding people. You don't want to reposition and reposition. You'll destroy the integrity of the glue. But anywhere that it has squeezed out and you don't want it, after a moment of letting it flash over, it would be called, you can remove it with your finger even. It's kind of like a booger. It's maybe a little sticky, but you'll notice here, there's a very subtle, I could even scrape those little boogers out of there, but there's almost no trace of it having been glued, despite the fact that it's just a butt weld, this to this surface, and there's a big buildup inside, but for strength, and it's really on there good, real good, and certainly will withstand somebody holding it or touching it in the future. Maybe not cranking on it again. You can supplement the strength of the joint with physical engagement and stuff like that so that you can crank on it, but this will be more than good enough here. I just can't say enough about this. Like I said, you can get a Loctite plastic weld, so long as it smells like the nail salon when you break it open and doesn't smell kind of like urea, the way epoxies tend to smell. You can be sure that it's a methacrylate, and it may just say right on there. This is a great brand. I like the Permatex stuff. This is at the automotive store for sticking your trim and various items back on the vehicle. And that's kind of how this stuff was developed, to my knowledge, in manufacturing, as we wanted to get cheaper and cheaper. When you, in manufacturing, bring components together and have to use a fastener, or they have to be precisely aligned to one another or snap together, and you need to engineer how that's going to fit and how the pieces are going to be held in the manufacturing process and be able to bring them together, it adds cost and adds cost and adds cost. So we developed an adhesive that could just kind of be by a robot, what do you want to call that, applied in little bloops, little blobs, and then the next piece just comes down and engages the blob, and so long as it's held in the right position and the complementary piece is held in the right position, that glue will flash over, and that stuff's been connected without a bunch of engineering to create fixtures and attachment points and bosses and stuff like that. So that was the advent, from what I understand, of methacrylate. And when I started in special effects in college, the way that you would attach your cables to inside an animatronic skull for an animatronic character, the way you would route and attach almost everything, metal to fiberglass, metal mechanism components to fiberglass underskull, would be by mixing up dental acrylic, which is what they make your dentures out of. It's what they make your nails out of, and it's what, when you get your nails refilled at the bed, and they make a little paste up and they put it in there and then they buff it out on you, that's dental acrylic. It's a liquid monomer and a powder polymer, and you mix them together, the monomer melts out the polymer, and the more polymer you add, the more like dough it becomes to the consistency that you want, and that gives you this. You have to dial it in with the two parts, but it gives you the sculptable consistency to kind of make teeth, or to rebuild fingernails, or to make a big lump that's perfectly blended out and have high craftsmanship in your animatronic components. But now you can just sort of get it in the tube. And if you buy the right system, some of them you can get helical mixing tips on there, and it'll mix the components as they come out. So it'll come out in a little tiny worm bead of pre-mixed component. And then what you do is you apply that as necessary, you do the project, and you leave that on there, and it'll cure up halfway down the tube where it really becomes well mixed. It'll cure up in there, and then it'll leave it sealed. And the next time you come to do a project, you take him off, you chuck him out, you put a new fresh mixing tip on there, and you do the next project, and you leave that one on until the following project. It continues to consume a mixing tip, and if you use like McMaster-Carr or somebody, they're about 75 or 80 cents each. However, it limits how much of this fooling around mess making you have to do. This is a piece of silicone that I mix on so that it does just peel off when we're all done. But it can be very effective, especially if you set up several things you're trying to glue, put on one mixing tip, and lay everything out. Get glue on everything, do it all up, and only consume one tip. So you can be strategic about it. But I highly recommend, if you're serious and you would normally lean on epoxy, to investigate methacrylate, because it does everything that epoxy does, in my opinion. And furthermore, it doesn't create a mess. It doesn't run away from the joint. You can clean it up kind of easily. I prefer the smell, etc. It's just a higher tech, more polished sort of a product. So I'm going to get this on here and hold it there with some tape just around everything to give it 5 or 10 minutes to gel over, and then I'm going to pull the tape off, and we'll come and look at it when we're finished and make sure that it meets standards here, and that nobody would basically ever know that it was ever broken. All right.